Recording is all time. Okay. I hope it is being recorded. Can you see? Is it being recorded?
Yes.
Okay.
It's recorded.
Yeah.
So philosophical anthropology. This is slightly modified for our online course just now. Basically, I have taken this from 4 different sources. You will see at the very end of the book, before the answers, there is Cyril's book, The Philosophy of the Human Person. This is Cyril's book, which he wrote actually in 1957. 1957, long before. Were you born at that time? 1957 years old. So, by the way, I came to JDB in 1996. So it was actually 1 year after my arrival. Then for the MA course at IGNU, many of us actually prepared the notes, and it is also taken from the notes on philosophical anthropology which was prepared by MA, for MA. Then there is a book of mine, Thomas, the Seattle's men's chief of Seattle. His talk is actually there in this Thomas. That was written in 2002. And in 2011, combining all these things, I published a book in the Lambert Academic Publishing House. And that book is very expensive. Human Search, Issues in Philosophical Anthropology. That is the title of the book. Okay, so when you make reference, you can refer to any of these also. Okay, now let me go back to the beginning. The easiest way to go to the beginning is either press Control and Home, or you can go back through these headings. Okay, Philosophical Anthropology Introduction. We are only trying to respond, to approach this great mystery of being human. We are not trying to find a solution. We don't have definitive and clear answers to any of the questions that we ask in this human person. This should never be seen as a weakness. This is actually because the phenomenon is so deep. When you talk about love, when you love a person, you cannot give clear-cut definitive answers. What does it mean by loving? Loving is an attitude. Loving is a mood. Loving is a commitment that goes on increasing, ever approachable but never fully attainable. Like love, life is also a great mystery which can have more depth and more meaning as we proceed. The other names, superior psychology, rational psychology, they betray one of our biases, that what we do with reason, our superior capability is better than the work of the manual workers. The thousands of millions, what they have been doing in constructing roads and buildings, that we see as inferior to the work of a writer like us. This is a very, very, very bad bias. But that is how it was. At least now we are aware of that bias. Let us also recall what Shakespeare wrote. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. So ours is a attempt, a very minor, weak attempt to understand ourselves. When it comes to the Indian situation, we know very well that we have a philosophy which is about 3,500 years old. While being proud of our philosophy, let us also at the same time give vent to what we have been telling about ourselves. Let us give vent to our own tradition, which sometimes has been exploitative. Our method is both phenomenological as well as descriptive. We want actually the phenomenological method of describing the experience of the other and to give a liberative perspective to it. Now, two key thoughts. Philosophy is anthropology. Paul Ricoeur, I want you by all means to know something about Paul Ricoeur. Both myself and Cyril de Brulé, we did our doctorates on him, Paul Ricoeur. He says, every understanding is self-understanding. When I try to understand how the computer functions, yeah, to some extent it answers the question who I am. I am trying to understand myself. This is very important. Theology is anthropology. Can you people read this text, or should I make it still bold, still bigger? Hello?
It's okay, Father, we can read.
It's okay, Father. It's okay, Father.
Okay. So, when I say theology is anthropology, it can be interpreted in two ways. Ludwig Feuerbach, Karl Marx learned a lot from him. He would interpret this from an atheistic perspective, and he would say, yes, talking about God is nothing but talking about the human being, the ideal human being, the projection. Freud and Marx also would say. But Karl Rahner will agree with Feuerbach but say, no, there is a God, a living God, whom we can only understand using our limited category. So theology is anthropology, but theology talk about God is genuine, but it is limited. There is a God who loves us, but our experience of God, particularly in times like this pandemic, is limited. Where has Karl Rahner been teaching? Karl Rahner, where has he been teaching? From which country is he? Hello? Karl Rahner. We have seen two of his books, Hearers
Germany.
of the Word and what is the other book? Spirit in the World. Where is he from?
Germany.
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 Yeah. Thank you. And where has he been teaching?
Innsbruck.
University.
Innsbruck.
It was a good guess. He has been teaching in Innsbruck, and that is the place. If anyone can tell me that, you will not be able to say actually. You know, just this is an aside, don't take it too seriously. In JDB now, there are about 8 people, professors, who have studied from Innsbruck. 8 professors. You send me a separate email naming at least 7 of the professors. I'll give you a
Pandikattu.
7. And there are
Pandikattu.
8 professors now in JDB.
Pandikattu.
That is one. That is okay. But send an email with at least 7 or 8 of them. Okay, so Rahner is from Innsbruck. Innsbruck actually is in Austria. Austria is just next to Germany. And in Austria also they speak the same language, that is German. Okay, so Karl Rahner gives a positive interpretation to this statement. Okay, what we are doing is approaching a full-fledged mystery, and this mystery is in the line of our friend Gabriel Marcel. So let us remember that because it is a mystery, we really cannot all the time come to terms with it. The mystery part of our understanding is elusive. It evades us. It's like a horizon, the horizon that we are looking at. The horizon is always enticing, fascinating, but we can approach it closer and closer, but we can never grasp it. It's also like Moses. You know, Moses was promised the land. Moses could gaze at the land, but he never could enter that land. He could only see it from far. That is the situation of all of us. Who is a human being? Yes, we know. But we don't really know everything about ourselves. Okay, now in the content of the book, by this time you are familiar with. Have a look at this Eros and Thanatos. Eros is not just sexual energy. Eros, which includes sexual energy, is the life instinct in each one of us. This coronavirus has got so much of that life instinct, and therefore it keeps on multiplying. But at the same time, Freud made us aware that there is also a death instinct, Thanatos. Somehow, both these life and death instincts are in tension. And finally, we have to yield ourselves to the death instinct. That's why the last chapter we are talking about death, life before and after death. While connected to the Eros, we'll be talking about freedom, love, self-actualization, and so on. Okay, now, the human person, a phenomenological introduction. The pilgrimage that we have undertaken. Remember, we don't really answer questions. We are trying to respond to the deepest questions within us. These questions are not problem questions. They are mystery questions. They urge us to go on. Ours is a pilgrimage. But can we live this pilgrimage more meaningfully? Can we live our own life experiencing the depth, experiencing the beauty of our life? And for this experience, this encounter, we can never remain only at the practical level, at the pragmatic level of doing. Theory is important. Nothing is more practical than a good theory. So the theory given by our philosophy, the theory given by our Christian vision, the theory given by our religious life, they are very, very important so that we commit ourselves to life. If we remain at the theoretical level, then of course it is not worth it. The temptation for people like me, professors and lecturers, is merely lecture and nothing else. But I want you students who would be actively engaged in ministries later on, that just doing counseling or social work is not enough. Let us come back, reflect on it, realize the theoretical underpinnings, and then try to change it. So, in this context, some of the basic questions. What is consciousness? Do we have a free will? Then Kant formulated these three questions. What can I know? What should I do? Ethics, epistemology. What may I hope for? That is eschatology, life after death, the fulfillment of human life. So the first one is epistemology. What do I do? That is ethics, politics also. What may I hope for? That is eschatology. Every error is an exaggerated truth. If Trump comes up with so many blunderous statements, there is some element of truth in it also. You cannot commit an error, make a false statement without some basis on truth. So, in every understanding, whether it be a spiritual understanding of the human person, whether it be sociological understanding, you have always an oppressive way and a liberative way. This is very, very true, because as religious, unfortunately, some of us are living a religious life in a very, very oppressive and enslaving manner. By the way, Cyril has written a book the philosophy of liberation that is printed already. Philosophy of liberation talks about this liberative understanding to life, to religious life, to anything that we do. It would be nice if you could get hold of a copy. If you write to me, I can send a soft copy of this philosophy of liberation by Cyril. We need to remember human beings are not merely poor. They are made poor because the rich people keep on exploiting them. They are purposely made to remain in poverty so that the rich people can have servants in their homes. Today we don't have slaves, but the system makes so many people, example the migrants, retain their slave status because the richer people wants it. So they will give them only enough to feed, only enough to survive. So people are not merely hungry. They are kept hungry purposely. They are impoverished. So in a way we can say our life here, our condition on this mad planet Earth, we are purposely made poor. They say countries like Africa, the rich countries want to continue to exploit the nation. Therefore, whatever the Africans do, they really cannot come out of their poverty. So what we have are shortage of justice, compassion, kindness, not shortage of food. We have the technology to feed the whole people. This was said by Henry Kissinger about 50 years ago. Even now, India has the food to feed its people. But the food is kept in the godowns, and many people go hungry, and a few commit suicide. Therefore, this is a question of theory, perspective, the justice that we don't share with others. It is not just technology that we lack. It is not food. It is not medicine we lack. We have medicine for TB, and still thousands die of TB. The sad fact is there are more people per year who die of TB than those who die of COVID. Of course, COVID, the latest I think is about 6 lakhs of people have died. Death by COVID is terrible, terrible, terrible. But I hope the COVID pandemic will teach us to learn to live as brothers and sisters in justice, in fraternity, and in sharing. Not with greed, not with selfishness, not with ego. So that much for the 2 units. Do you have any questions, please?